Right now, we will begin our construction from the back block, and I'll be making use of my steel ruler. My ruler is graded in centimeters and inches, which will make it easy for me to flip through inches and centimeters. Now, the first thing I want you to note is that here is the point O, the top line. This is the top margin. Now, from the top line, we have to measure down 3 centimeters, the value of point O. Please, the value of your own point O may be different. Please take your own from the proportion table. So I will mark 3 at interval. I'll mark 3 here. I'll come in a little to mark just to ensure that I have a straight line, and I will connect. Now, here is my point O. Now, from point O, I'm going to measure down the following measurements. I'll measure down my hammer depth line. This measurement is taken from the proportion table. I will measure my length to waist, which is taken from my client, and from my length to waist, I will measure down 22 centimeters to give me my hip level. I will do that now. The first thing is my hammer depth line. For me, it is 21 cm. The next measurement is the length to waist, which is taken on the client. For me, it is 14 inches. Now, and from this waistline, I will measure down 22 centimeters. This is my hip line. What I have. The next line I want to input will be my across back measurement. Now, my across back measurement will be halfway between point O and my armhole depth line. What I have is 21 centimeters. I will find the midpoint, which will be 10.5. Now, assuming your own armhole depth line is maybe 21.5 or 22.5, you are expected to round it up to the nearest whole number. So if yours is 21.5, you have to round it up to 22, then you divide by 2, which will be 11, but mine is 10.5. This line is my across back line. Now, the final horizontal line we're going to put will be our shoulder line. The shoulder line is always 3 centimeters below the O line. It is a fixed value for everybody. This is the O line, the shoulder line, across back line, your bust line or your armhole depth line, your waistline, and your hip line. The next measurement we'll be inserting will be half of your across back measurement. My across back measurement is 14, so half of it will be 7 inches. I will mark this 7 inches on my armhole depth line, and I will also mark it on my shoulder line, and I will connect. On my armhole depth line, after this vertical line, now this vertical line is called the armhole guideline. After this vertical line, I would measure the value of my UP. This value is taken from the proportion table, and for me, the value is 5 centimeters. Here is my UP. The UP means on the arm point. Now, going back to the O line, on your O line, you have to insert your neck width. The value of your neck width is also taken from the proportion table. So for me, mine is 7 centimeters. On the O line, I will measure 7 centimeters. And on this 7 centimeters, you have to go up by 2 centimeters. This 2 centimeters is for every size. This point will be labeled as your NP. NP means neck point. Now, on your shoulder line, after this vertical armhole guideline, you have to mark 2 centimeters. Now, you can see that I don't really have anything left, so I will extend the line and measure 2 centimeters. Here is my SP. SP means shoulder point. You're going to use a long ruler to connect your NP to your SP. What I have here is my shoulder slope. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use my armhole curve to connect my NP to my point O. What we're going to do next is to draw our armhole. But before that, On the across back line here, this line here, you have to measure down 3 centimeters. This is just a guideline to draw our armhole. You have to just mark the point, 3 cm. Now at the junction here, this junction here on the armhole depth line, you have to measure 3 centimeters on the angle 45 degrees, 3 cm. So for us to draw our armhole curve, it has to go through SP, touching these 3 centimeters, touching these 3 centimeters on that short line, and all the way to your UP. So you can make use of your armhole curve or your pattern master. My own pattern master is different because it's a flexible one, but it's the same thing. So you will place your armhole curve this way. You may not get all the curve at once depending on your measurement, but I think for me I can get everything at once. Then you just connect. So this is what I have for my armhole. Now shifting my pattern a little, I'll be going to my hip line. Now on your hip line, you have to do 1/4 of your hip measurement. My hip measurement is 38 inches and 1/4 of my hip measurement will be 9.5. So on my hip line here, I will just measure 9.5 inches. You will notice I'm using centimeters and inches together. As a designer, you should be able to work with both. It's not hard, it's no big deal. So I'm going to use here as my HP. HP means hip point. So I will take my long ruler, I will connect UP to HP. So this is how the back block looks like. We are not done yet, but the next thing we'll be doing is to go to the front block and do some construction, then we'll come back to the back block. So for the front block, the first thing we are going to do is to ensure that the armhole depth line, the waistline and the hip line touches the center front line. So I'll just extend all my lines like so. Now what we are going to do next, we're going to start from the neck region. On the top line, now for the front block, our point O is on the top of the paper at the corner here. Unlike the back whereby we came down by 3 centimeters for me. For the front, the O is on the top. Now on the whole line, on the center front line, we are going to measure down 4.5 centimeters. If you're a big size, you can use 4, but for me 4.5. The textbook says 4 or 4.5, so I'll be using 4.5 for myself. This is the shoulder line for the front. The other thing we'll be measuring will be the depth of the neckline. You can use 7, 7.5 or 8 depending on your size. So for me, I think I'm a moderate size, I will use 7.5. I will mark this point at interval and I'm going to remove. Now for the shoulder line that is 4.5, the length of the line should be 16.5 centimeters. This is where the 16.5 centimeters is. On the O line, you have to insert your neck width, which you use for the back. Please note the neck width of the front and the back has to be the same. I used 7 for myself, so on the top line, I'll just measure 7. Now on the neck depth line, I'll just try and mark 7, measure 7. I'm trying to draw a rectangle. I want to draw the neckline. So at the junction here, I will just draw a line 3 cm. This is just a guideline to draw the neckline. And I'll also mark 1 cm before the center front. This is just to ensure that I do not have a pointed edge. And I'll use my armhole curve to connect from this point here, which is my neck point, to the tip here and to the center front. So what I have here is my neckline. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a straight ruler to connect my NP to the tip of this 16.5 centimeters. A straight line that is 22 cm long. It can be more than 22, but 22 cm is fine. The next thing I'm going to do is on the armhole depth line, I will measure 4 cm up and 4 cm down, and I'm going to roll. And the line 4 cm up is my across chest measurement, while the 4 cm down is your true bust line. I repeat, true bust line. The next thing I'm going to be doing is to insert half of your nipple to nipple measurement. My nipple to nipple measurement is 7.5, so half of it gives me 3.75. So on the armhole depth line, I'll measure my 3.75. On the chest line as well, I can also measure my 3.75. Then at the 16 point, the shoulder seam line, the shoulder slope line, I can just measure my 3.75. This is just to ensure that I have a straight line. Now all these points here, I'm going to connect them using a broken line. I will ensure that the broken line touches the shoulder slope and the broken line stops 2 centimeters below the armhole guideline, the bust line or armhole depth line. So I can just start with this 2 centimeters below, is somewhere here. Then I'll take it up with broken line like so. Now from where the broken line touches the shoulder slope line, I would measure 2 centimeters. Now this 2 centimeters mark here, I will connect it to 2 cm below the bust line, the tip here, the beginning of the line here. The line I'm drawing now is my inner dart leg. I'm trying to make my shoulder dart. The next thing I'm going to do is to insert the value of my dart. For me, my dart value is 7 centimeters. So at the tip here, I told you this is the inner dart leg. I would measure 7 cm, the value of my dart, and I'll connect it to the tip here. This line here is the inner dart leg. So what I have here is my shoulder dart. It's as simple as that. It's very easy, it's not hard. Now what I'm going to do next is to insert half of your across chest measurement. For me, my across chest measurement is I think 12 and a half. So half of 12 and a half will be 6 1/4. So I'll be inserting this value on the across chest line here. Now please note, when I'm inserting this value, I will not measure what I have in between the dart. I will jump what I have between the dart leg. So what I want to measure is 6 1/2, but from my center front to the first dart leg, I have 4 inches. So I'll bring my 4 inches to the second dart leg and continue my measurement until I have my 6 1/2. Please note, I did not include what I have in between the darts. The other way to go around it is you can start by measuring what you have between the darts. What I have between the dart is 0.75 inches. Now this is 0.5 inches. I will add it to half of my across measurement. That means I will add 0.75 plus 6.25. That will give me a total of, I think, 7 inches. So from the center front, I'll just measure straight whatever of the 7.25, whatever that answer gives me, I'll measure it straight. It's either you measure without including the value of the dart and you will jump it, or you had the value of your dart and you measure across. So from here now, this is what I have. What I'm going to do now is just to square this line down to touch the armhole guideline. But for me to ensure I have a straight line, measure from the center front to the short line. I have 7.25. Come to the armhole guideline and just to confirm, you see my lines are straight. So this is what we have so far.